myself again.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to NUFC Matters, and just want to pay our respects to a living legend in Scotland, in Rangers, and a man who did so much for that football club up there. Walter Smith has passed away today, aged 73. Obviously, our thoughts and the rest of the thoughts from everybody at NUFC Matters go with his family and all the Rangers fans who will be in mourning today. But Walter Smith, hell of a guy. Had the pleasure of meeting him on more than one occasion, and God bless him. Liam, good morning. Good to see you, mate, and thanks for jumping on early. Half term, we've both got kids, and Newcastle United questions galore, as always, coming in from the viewers, and apologies for the late start. It's only because Liam's got a job to do as well as half term and looking after the kids, unfortunately. So Alan Thompson wins the prize, I guess, for the best comment. He said, should we just start the show at 6?
Possibly. No, I have a morning meeting every day, meeting of editors across the country. So sometimes it runs over. So unfortunately, today it did a little bit, but it wasn't my usual lateness. I was on time for my first meeting anyway.
Good stuff. Well, I've got to watch Boss Baby 2 at 1 o'clock today, like so. I've got another important appointment there. Right, as always, we do put questions out onto Twitter. A request for questions onto Twitter, so I will try and get through a few of them first. No waffle from us today, just straight into the questions. Rich asks a really important one. He says, pound for pound, are ghost pumpkins better than standard pumpkins, or should we have stuck with string and turnips?
This is a conversation that, honestly, I don't know what it is. My wife was brought up in South Shields. It's like she's come from a posh family, because when I mentioned this about the turnips and things like that, she's like, what are you on about? We just had pumpkins. I think crazy. I was going around in a bloody bin bag and like with turnip on a string and all this kind of stuff. But I think the turnips is a bit more traditional in this country, isn't it?
Yeah, turnips was the way I was brought up. I mean, I'm glad I didn't have to get my hands in such a state to carve them out like my mum and that did. And she had to do not one, but two for me and my brother. So, good old days. Definitely turnips in Gateshead, and I'm sure Newcastle as well. I noticed you've been getting cyberbullied this morning off of Mr. Stuart Penman about something that was actually mentioned on a show where I'm sure the archives have been destroyed in the Great Fire, Liam. So I don't think we'll be able to find any footage of this claim that you said that you were going to shave your head off if the takeover went through. Someone also suggesting you said you would run naked through the streets of Newcastle. Unfortunately, Liam, I've tried to find the clips, mate, and I can't find them, mate.
I really appreciate that, Steve. I think I don't remember ever saying it. If I ever did say this I definitely didn't say the second one. I'm not getting done for like exposure or anything like that. You know, exposing myself in the Newcastle city centre. The first one, I must have been sort of in a wave of positivity or disbelief. Or I might have been in a moment where I didn't think it would happen, but I don't think I've ever said shave my head. Look, that time is coming. I'm going to join the bold crew very soon. It won't be too in the not too distant future. But for now, I'm hanging on to my hair just, and I don't intend on shaving it off anytime soon.
Okay, I think that draws a close to that speculation, and we'll bury that with the pumpkins at the bottom of the garden now, Liam, hopefully. Although I'm sure you still get a bit of cyberbullying from people who call themselves friends. Neil Davison will ask a football question. Thank you, Neil. And this was it a two-parter? I think it was. Is it just speculation that we are looking at out-of-work director of footballs and coaches? This list appears via the media only includes out-of-work Campos, Fonseca, Fabre, Howe, etc. Surely we should be going for the best, regardless of any bad press. My number one is Ten Hag and Overmars.
I think, look, out-of-work's easier. Out-of-work's a much easier way of going about things. And if there's a good caliber of manager, which I suggest there is, who's available who are out of work, and there are a good caliber of directors of football who are also out of work, then there's not really a need to go and pay good money. Like I've always said it, like the one I would have picked as a builder would have been someone like Brendan Rodgers. But I just think that's it's my understanding that there have been conversations on that front with regards to Brendan Rodgers quite some way back down the line. But I just don't believe it's a deal that would get done. It's very similar what I say with, I seen there was reports from some spurious one of these football websites that pops up on news now all the time this morning, suggesting that there'd been the hope is alive for Rafa Benitez. I mean, it's another one of those where the guy is in a job. He's in a job. He doesn't break out of jobs. And of course he did with the China one, but that was a very unique situation. The guy doesn't break out of jobs. He's made the call to go to his hometown, his adopted hometown, and run a football club that's just the opposite from the one that he run really successfully around 10, 15 years ago. And I think he'll remain there. I don't get where this hope comes from, because they've had a couple of bad results. I don't believe Everton, having made that monumental decision, given the outcry to take on Rafa Benitez, will be in a mood to suddenly sack him after let's be honest, a really bad 10 minutes against Watford. And that's all it really was in football terms. Beyond that, put it into the context of the season, he's had a really good season at Everton so far, and I would suspect come the end of the season, people will be looking upon that saying he's probably had the most successful season Everton will have had in quite some time. So I think it's all relative. I just think with regards to the out of work stuff, I think it's an easier deal. I think there are some good managers out there. What I would say about the Fonseca one is there's a lot of talk coming from the Portuguese side about Fonseca. A lot of talk, and it sort of, to me, I don't know the ins and outs of the Fonseca one, but there's a lot of talk coming from the Portuguese side. A lot of talk of, I'm ready, come on, I'm ready to take this deal, I would always urge some caution on that front. I think that they've done the right thing, the owners, in some ways. I'm really, it's between a rock and a hard place. You want to get somebody in fast, because I, like everybody else probably listening to the show, whenever you guys do listen to it, will probably feel exactly the same, that the time is running out. You don't want to have too many games gone, because the task to get back out of that bottom three just gets harder and harder and harder the more games that go by, particularly winnable ones. So yeah, I think they need to make a decision quick, but by the same token, they need to get it's such a big decision to make. They need to get the right person. And I think in some ways they did the professional thing and giving Jones the 2 games and saying, look, we're not going to rush ourselves into throwing somebody into the job and then end up sacking them in February. You know what I mean? It's got to be a one that they've got to make this call, and it's got to be the right call. It's got to be an 18-month call, in my opinion. It's got to be a manager who can not only take them through. I've said they could probably do with a firefighter. They're not going to go down that route. I think it's quite clear now that they're going to go down a little bit more of a medium-term approach. And I think this appointment, even if the manager gets a 3, 4, 5-year deal, whatever it may be, I think this is an 18-month appointment you're looking at now. You're looking at somebody to take Newcastle United out of the bottom 3, keep them up, but also develop them beyond, because they need to level up in almost every position. We're not talking about signing superstars here. We're talking about signing 4 or 5 players who are better than the 4 or 5 have got.
Colin Wilson, sorry to interrupt you, but it ties in with this. So yeah. let's continue the same theme. He says Man United might be looking for a new manager like us. Obviously, Man U getting whopped off Liverpool 5-0 at the weekend. Ole looks like his head's on the block as well. Do you think they'll be looking for the same type of manager, he says? No, I don't at all. I think they'll be looking at a totally different level. Manchester United is Manchester United, so there'll be no crossover. That'll be my impression. I don't see... We're not able to compete with Manchester United at the moment, nor should we even be trying, and I don't believe that they are trying. I think it's about levels. And I think Newcastle United in 5 years' time, I would imagine, can compete. Although Manchester United will always have that pull. They are effectively, with regards to fan base, I would imagine the largest football club on the planet. I think that they do have that real pull. But in terms of level of managers, Newcastle United won't be competing with those type of managers like you're talking about, the Ten Hags. If he can go to Manchester United, he would go in a heartbeat. Antonio Conte, all of a sudden, the rumours are that he's interested. A manager who traditionally doesn't really take jobs halfway through seasons, likes to have a proper pre-season, that kind of thing. He's jumping at the chance when Manchester United are there. It's levels. Newcastle United aren't anywhere near that level, so they're going to have to appoint somebody of their level, slightly above, and then just hope there's a bit of a consolidation
and progression, a little bit of cup progression. Stay in the division, start moving forward. And I think there's plenty of managers out of work, as I mentioned before, who can do that job. There are risks for everybody, but there are risks with appointing people who are seen traditionally as managers who will keep you in a division. See West Brom and Sam Allardyce. We don't like Sam Allardyce for obvious reasons, but he's known as a manager who keeps people in divisions. Didn't keep West Brom in a division last year. Never even got close, by the way. They were down all season. So I would say, even if you're going to say, oh, I think it should be Premier League experience, I think it should be this, it should be that, certain things you'd want to tick. There's no guarantees with anybody. I think if you go in and get a good coach who can organise the team better, you will see bad players become slightly better players. And I think you will get improvement in results. But that takes time. So they do need to get somebody in, and we're probably going to have to be patient. But the key for me with Newcastle United this season is they've got to be in touching distance in January. And even if they're in the bottom three, because we know that December is horrible, but they've got a couple of games in late November, December where you think they can win those games, and they're going to have to. But they need to get up and closer to that point per game, because that point per game, 9.9 times out of 10 keeps you in this division. They're a million miles away from that. They're only at 0.5-ish points per game. They need to get up close at that point per game. And if they can do that between now and January, when there will be an injection of players and cash, then I think we're in a positive place. But it's not easy. It's not easy, but the Premier League never is.
No, it's not. Adam West says, how much do you think we'll spend in the January window, and how much do we need to spend? And of course, we saw a rather interesting video that claimed that we could spend 600 million in January. We've also seen, various various clubs reported as saying that they won't be doing any business with Newcastle United, although I think agents will have something to say about that. And we've also seen players. Exactly. So I mean, it's a big, it's a big story, that, which is going to run, of course, till January, and we'll see how that all develops. But how much do you think we'll spend? How much do you think we need to spend? Good question, madam.
It is a good question, and my answer to it is even simpler. We'll spend as much as we need to spend. There is a bit of a idea where people are conflating the idea of transfer fee spend and actual spend. And I think people are getting a little bit confused by the figures. So the transfer fee spend is very different to the amount you will outlay on a whole deal. And for example, with infrastructure or academy or whatever it may be, an FFP. So there are key differences. One of the key differences is that the transfer fees, obviously the transfer fee comes under this, but it can sort of adjust. Sorry, 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I'll just jump off here, Steve. I've got kids coming in the room and all.
Go for it, mate. Go for it. I'll do the adverts. Big shout out to Spider VPN. And thanks to everybody in the chat for keeping Pete right last night. Spider VPN are the boys to trust with regards to internet. If you've got a problem with your internet, then Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of your search list, and they are the boys to trust. Can protect your computer, protect everything on it, your passwords, photographs, you name it. Spider VPN are the boys to trust. It's Halloween coming up, of course, at the end of this week. And where else would you find your ideal skips and bins supplier then, of course, on the web during Halloween? You see what I did there? There we go. So Bobby on his broom. I'm not sure who that is in the bin. Like, it could be Mike Ashley there. But skipsandbins.com, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contracts free, and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to them for being regular sponsors. L&G Family Funeral Directors, 0191 389 7245. And John at qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. Also the guy who runs our website, NUFCmatters.com. And jump onto Facebook. We now have a Facebook page, which is growing rather rapidly. And you're going to see quite a bit of action on the Facebook page. So just search NUFC Matters on the Facebook page. John is setting about his task on there, and we're going to be modernizing as well. Going to be an Instagram page and a TikTok page in due course. So keep an eye out for all of those. You can also find us on Twitter at NUFC Toon Talk. But thank you to John at QTech for that. John at Jab Signature, jabsignature.co.uk is the website to visit if you want to buy some Jab gear now. So get yourself onto there. If you're a first-time visitor to the channel, please subscribe. Hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can subscribe to the channel for free. We do 7 shows a week, and we do a little bit extra. And some of you might have noticed we have announced a rather special true crime interview this weekend. I chatted to a guy who was involved with the Gambino family in America. And those of you who know your mafia stuff in America will know that the Gambinos were, of course, the family associated with John Gotti. And I had an hour's conversation with Jimmy Airlight about his life of crime and how he changed things around. It's really interesting interview that. He ended up going in as a stockbroker. Some people might say that some stockbrokers are villains as well, but it's an interesting story. We hear a little bit about John Gotti Sr. and Jr. and fascinating to chat. As you know, a lot of you know that I have got like a big interest in the true crime world as well. So if you're interested in that, then take a look at that. That'll be on Saturday at 6 o'clock. Those of you who don't like the true crime stuff, simply move on. Don't bother watching it. But that one is a little special there for everybody who does like it. We're also available as podcasts on iTunes, Spotify, and the rest. And don't forget, we've got some big events coming up. The Christmas do was rearranged from last year as the 19th of November. This Friday, we've got Gavin Peacock, of course, 29th of October. And Peter Beardsley is on the 26th of November. Find out all about those events and much more besides on the website newcastlelegends.com and click shop. Those of you who live in Whitley Bay or the surrounding areas, I'm doing an evening with Rob Lee this Thursday at the Laurels Whitley. So www.laurelswhitley.co.uk. Still time to get tickets from them. And bobix.com for the evening with Supermac, which takes place at Bobix in Jesmond, bobix.com. All proceeds, of course, go to the food bank for that one. If you want to make a donation to the food bank, NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. The match day bucket is operational 365 days of the year, and you can still enter into the raffle for that lovely watch if you make a donation. And don't forget, this coming Saturday, I'll be live at the Dog and Parrot pre-match for the Chelsea game with Supermac. As always, get yourself down there if you want to see me and Malcolm. And my book, Every Boy's Dream, about 37 years supporting Newcastle United, is available on Amazon. If you've already bought it, please leave a review. If you liked it, leave a positive one. If you didn't like it, leave a negative one. And NUFC Matters raffle as well for the food bank, a pair of customized Peter Beardsley trainers signed and in your size, provided by I Am The Renovation. Tickets are £1 from NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. And just a shout out for the show which will be going out tomorrow night. It's a pre-record, and that is with Ben Jacobs, giving his ideas and views on what the Saudi vision really means at Newcastle United. So from my perspective, that was a great chance to speak to Ben about the future, and he gave some great answers. Anyway, I'm going to head back to Liam. Here we go, Liam. Have you need to unmute as well, mate, just in case. I presume the kids are shouting and doing some kind of protest, are they?
I'm back. No, it's the Kennedy pack. There's enough of it at this end. Like we've got obviously, we've got the dog and got cats.
Oh God, the dog! I forgot about the dog.
It was a dog coming in from the vets, and the cat's running through the kitchen, and the kids getting excited. I was like, "Oh God, I've lost my train of thought here." But it's chaos.
To be honest, I've got sometimes people who are used to using WhatsApp. Sometimes you get messages, and sometimes it's easier to send a message. And I did get a message off Liam the other week, where he started the message by saying, "It's okay, darling, it's all right." I was wondering whether I'd tuned into the wrong channel, but it was actually Liam talking to the dog before he left a message for me. So yeah, you never know where you're going to go with these things, do you, on this show?
No, you don't. I'll finish off where I was. Right, so I was talking about the transfer spends thing that people keep getting a little bit confused about. So we've seen the somebody suggest 900 million pounds, 600 million pounds. The figure on a transfer fee is in between 100 and 200 million, somewhere in between those figures. But when we're talking about total spends, when you say somebody come up with a 600 million figure, for example, we're more talking about the stuff around that as well that they could spend. So that would be the total of somebody's contract who you might bring in on £200,000 per week. Bring a few players in like that, and then the fees start to really, really run away with you. And that's where people are getting the 600 million type thing from. But on pure transfer fees alone, we're looking, and I've seen figures suggested anywhere from 160 to about 180, 190 as being something that Newcastle could physically spend. Of course, if they did spend that, and this is the bit where people also get confused, you end up in a situation, potentially, if revenues don't increase with that, you end up in an Everton situation. So there does have to be some sensible building here, even though Newcastle United are in a really good financial position. They can't just go out and blow all of their money immediately and all of the money that FFP allows them to immediately, because then they'll incur losses and then they'll get to a point whereby they're stuck. Everton had this with a ridiculous spend under Ancelotti. I'm trying to think who went before that. Was it Marco Silva, Roberto Martinez? These type of managers, they had a ridiculous spend trying to build themselves up to get into that break that top six, and they've got absolutely nowhere near breaking it. And so what's happened is the Champions League football that had to come with that kind of spend didn't. And they had a summer like they had. Luckily, they had the best person they possibly could have to spend that really meager amount that they did in the summer in Rafa Benitez, and bring in a couple of gems like Demarai Gray, Andros Townsend. Feels like I've gone through in this first 20 minutes, apart from all the adverts, a bit of a Rafa Benitez loving. But you end up in a situation like Everton where they've got nothing to spend because they're in an absolute limit. Now, you need to be cleverer about the way it's spent. So people need to be realistic. Newcastle United financially will not go out and spend £200 million in January. What they'll spend is what they need to spend. If they need to push a little bit more to stay in the division, I'm absolutely certain the owners will do that. They will spend what they need to spend. Don't get caught up in all of this. Spend X, spend Y. They will bring in good level of players to level up, and that will hopefully be enough to keep Newcastle United in the division. They're not going to have to break the bank to sign Jesse Lingard. They're not going to have to break the bank to sign James Tarkowski. They're not going to have to break the bank to sign those type of players. We're not talking about in January going out and signing a 70, 80, 90 million pound player, because it doesn't make sense. You pluck a top level player, put them straight into this Newcastle United side. For example, he's a striker or a winger or whatever, or a midfielder. We're still going to have this pedestrian, slow, aging lack of mobility in the back line. And they're still going to have fullbacks. For example, I was there on Saturday. The don't stop crosses coming in. Look, there are problems in this Newcastle United side. They need levelling up. They're better off going out and signing in January 4 or 5 £10 million players. Much better going out and doing that than going out and signing one £50 million player, because 5 £10 million players is much more likely to keep you in the division than 150. Oh, Steve, you're on mute now.
You know why that is? I've got the kids as well, you see, and I'm trying not to get any background noise. Is always difficult when you've got the kids off. So that's 1-1. We're playing out a 1-1 draw at the minute, Liam. I've still got plenty of questions on Twitter. I'm going to go to this one. I'm not going to get through them all, and I do want to give people in the chat a chance to get some of their questions up as well. Quicker. Yeah, but we'll have to be. Chris is talking about stadiums, and this is something you put out on Newcastle World, I noticed this week. Yeah. And he says, question 1, he's broke it down here, but I'll go with this one. In the 90s, stadium plan to build on part of the town where that was refused. St James's Park was to be left for other sports, etc. What if the club or council promised to demolish St James's Park and turn it into parkland? No green belt would be lost and the cows could have a change of scenery. So he's talking about moving the ground. I mean, just give people a little insight into your article and what you put out there and the kind of response you've had.
Response has been mixed. So I posed 3 questions. The 3 questions were, would you be for or against the changing of the name? So selling of, for example, naming rights. Would you be, do you think extending the stadium and improving it is a priority for the new owners? And the third question was, how would you feel about if Newcastle United needed to moving the stadium from where it is? And I've got to say, with all those three questions, people fell on all sides of the fence with different parts of those questions. I would say the one that got the most positive response was the first one. So the idea that the naming rights, if you had to sell the naming rights to sort of improve the football club, improve the FFP limit, and it meant investment in the team and improvement of the team, then there was generally a positive response to that. And I think I've seen some criticism on there, people trying to spark debates in, well, that's hypocrisy, considering the Mike Ashley Sports Direct Arena thing. It's apples and pears. It's not the same thing. Basically, the Mike Ashley thing was a freebie, and it was basically a land grab. And Newcastle made so little money out of all of the branding of Sports Direct over the course of time that you just look at clubs in similar situations, how much money they made in comparison. Tottenham's, Aston Villa's, Everton's, their commercial revenue has gone up through the roof in a period of exponential growth for the Premier League in that front. Newcastle United has gone down. So if there was to be a big cash boost for a change of name, I think people tend to fall on the side that, look, St James's Park does feel enshrined as a name in what we see as Newcastle United, but by the same token, if it meant we could go to a different level, I think people accept that. On the other ones, totally mixed. I got the sense that people don't want to move from St James's Park. That would be the sense that I've got, because it's where it is, it's what it is.
It's a spiritual home.
It is, but it's also so central, so iconic in positioning. In terms of you're an away fan, it's the best away day for anybody because they can walk up from the train station, hit a bar every 20 metres and get to the stadium. It's a great place to come, and you're in the city centre. You've got pubs all around you, restaurants, nightlife. It's a great place to be, and it's a great place on a match day, as we both know and everybody listening knows. But I would say that with St James's Park comes limitations, and we're going to see a waiting list building. That's gonna happen, and some people are saying, well, we don't want the football tourists and things like that. That is actually part and parcel of growing a worldwide fan base, and I'm totally for that. To be honest, I'm quite happy for Newcastle to build a worldwide fan base and bring in the tourists. But this expansion isn't really to accommodate that. This is expansion to me is to accommodate Newcastle. Got 52,000 in the second division. Newcastle United did that 2 seasons the 2 seasons they were last in there, averaging late 40s and 50s. And also, when Rafa Benitez brought that one little, honestly, it was an ounce of hope. You couldn't buy a ticket for love nor money. I expect that to continue at St James's Park, and you'll be able to at least put 10,000 on the crowd on a home game week in, week out. And when things start moving even more in the right direction under a new manager and, of course, the new owners, then you might be talking adding, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20 on the amount of people you'd be able to sell out for a home crowd.
Yeah, okay. I love this question from Drew. Have the new owners, in your opinion, factored in a possible relegation?
They have to have factored in possible relegation. What I would say is I'm not sure that they expected it to go through when it did. So there has been a lot of surprises along the way, but they absolutely, in business modelling, they've had to have factored in the possibility of a relegation last season and also the possibility of a relegation this season. What I would say is that although I talked earlier about time running out, and it does feel quite nervy at the moment that they need to make a decision, and the only ace they've got in the pack between now and January, which I think is around 10 or 11 games away, is the manager change. But I think a manager change within 5 games can make a big difference. And Newcastle could end up getting results in that tough November-December period and put themselves in a fighting chance of January. But I think they've got to factor that in. I really do. I think they've got to have thought about the prospect of dropping out of the division. And look, I got the train to and from Palace, and I spoke to a lot of really, really good fans, both on the way there. Got the train on.
I was sitting with Darren, one of my pals, I think, for the way down, I think.
Yeah, I did. I seen Darren, seen his mates on the way down, bumped in another group of lads who ended up getting a train from St Pancras to Norwood Junction with, had a good crack. And there was a lot of these type of conversations. Spoke to Two for Change, Joe from Two for Change, ended up getting the beers in on the way back as well. And we had a good crack about this, and we talk a lot about would it be a wasted year? Of course it would be a wasted year. But what you would say is if they did get relegated, that the owners are here for the long term. They've made that very clear from the start. And it would look plodding around the likes of, I don't know, who may be any given year, plodding around your Lutons and all this kind of thing and doing all that rubbish again would be pretty grim. It would be negative because you feel like you're on the cusp of something and it would take you a year potentially to get back there. But these lot are in for the long term, and if they do get relegated, they're not going to bail out. They're just going to continue ploughing the money in, investing properly, astutely, and I think they'll get Newcastle United to where they want to be. It would probably, look, I'm just guessing, but I think if they did get relegated, they'd probably come up with the first attempt, as is the way anyway, most of the time. Most teams do. There's a lot of bounce up and down teams, but if they did get relegated, then that would happen. And I think they'd probably end up doing what Wolves did. I think they'd come up with really good investment and they'd probably finish 6th or 7th the next season. I don't think it would probably hold them back too much, but it would feel like that for a year, having to dip back down into that. But there's a long way to go between now and then. A long way to go. A lot of points to be played for and a lot of games to be won.
Yeah, a lot of points to be played for, a lot of games to be won. That is very true. Okay, we're going to try and find a few questions in the chat because it's gone mad. People do enjoy this early start to the show, which surprised me because I wasn't sure that many people would tune in. But we have nearly 300 people watching at this time in the morning. It's all
the work from home, isn't it? That's what it is. It's a change in culture, hasn't it? Really, probably been in the last 18 months.
Yeah, I would agree. It's certainly been that case. The Rafa Benitez story. I mean, look, I'll ask you a question as I started to go through the questions that people have asked. Rafa Benitez stories now come out that people, Newcastle are potentially looking at him. Is there any signs of this managerial hunt coming to an end, or are we still? We know Graham Jones has got the job against Chelsea. Are we expecting this to drag on in the next international break? Do you think?
It's a really tough one because, like I said, I think they're more keen on making the right decision rather than a rushed one. There has been a lot of talk of Fonseca, and I'm keen not to go into too many detail about it, but there's been a lot. But I do think a lot of that's come from the Portuguese side. It does sound like he impressed when he's been spoken to, but he hasn't been the only manager spoken to. And there were suggestions from the likes of a really well-respected journalist like Craig Hope and others that it wasn't quite on as far as had been suggested. That was kind of my understanding as well, which is why you get the surprise from the Portuguese side that it's done, that he's accepted the deal. But I'm just hearing a lot of I'm willing to go, I'm ready to go. The deal's there, I'm ready to sign it. And those kind of noises do concern you when it's not a one-horse race, which it isn't. It isn't. There are a number of managers they've spoken to, and they'll just make the right call. And it's a huge, like I say, it's a huge decision because it's an 18-month decision. Because make the wrong one, and then you have that year of going back to go forward. And look, I hope that Fonseca does get it done, or if it's not Fonseca, I hope that it's someone like Lucien Favre, because I think those two candidates for me do stand out as big candidates for the job. I think an Eddie Howe, defensive limitation. I think we've seen enough of Eddie Howe in the Premier League to know that he wouldn't be a perfect fit. We haven't really seen enough of the other two to know if they're right or wrong. So I think I could make more of a fair judgment to know that I'm not sure that Eddie Howe would be the perfect fit personally. I don't think the Bournemouth side's defended very well, and I think we need a little bit more than that. But look, he's a decent man manager and an okay coach. If he can bring some decent coaches in around him as well, then that could work. But I'm seeing this question here, and this is something I was having a conversation with my dad at the weekend, bizarrely about, and I haven't seen his quotes last week. And I did mention this about Conor Cody, and I know he's somebody that you know as well, Steve.
Yeah.
A fantastic, anybody who was involved in that England camp, you hear the bits and bobs coming out of that from the summer. A top class professional, a leader and a captain. He's the type of signing that you would look to make and say, can we get him in? Can he take the armband and take you forward for 18 months? Look, he's never going to be the finished article from where you want to go, but he'll get you there. The players like Conor Cody would easily get you there. And I think those are the type of characters and professionals that Newcastle United should be looking at. Players in and around teams slightly above them, who they can nick off them, improve and level up. And I think that's got to be the key for me.
Yeah, I would agree. Connor Cody, for me, great signing if we can get him. Rafa Benitez has certainly looked at him when he was at the club as well. So I would think that is a potential signing. And Lingard as well, you brought that up last week, the Instagram post. I would agree. I think that again would be a strong sign. And I think, 3 players through the middle would probably do us, with Dubravka returning, a decent centre-half, ideally, and either another centre-half or another full-back, somebody who could just hit the ground running. A ball player in midfield. I think we've got enough people who can defend in midfield. That would be up to the new manager to get that right. New formation, new tactics, new training schedules, etc. Put somebody who can put the ball in the net up front alongside Wilson, because there's no doubt Wilson, if we can keep him fit, will score goals. What a goal that was down at Palace at the weekend. I mean, that's up there for Newcastle's goal of the season, I think, already. But yeah, I think, as you say, it's going to be interesting. Somebody as well, Darren says Barkley would be a good signing again. Yeah, I mean, Captain Cody, says Colin, I would agree. You need somebody who's going to come in and take it by the scruff of the neck, and I think that would be fantastic if we saw that. Moza says the director of football role needs filling before the manager. Look what happens when they don't get on and it isn't done properly. For example, Dennis Wise. I mean, a lot of talk about this.
It is. But look, let's be realistic about this. So we're talking about a long-term investment in a football club. We're actually talking about short-term goals as the first box that we need to tick, and you need to stay in the Premier League. So what you might say is, we'll get a director of football in. If, and this is all hypothetical, as the question is as well, hypothetical, if a director of football would take you 6 months, or it might take you 2 months, right? Would you really want a director of football to come in first and then choose his manager? I don't. I think a manager, for the time being, I think a director of football can be put on the back burner a bit. And I get that they have to marry together. But at the moment, Newcastle United are making a relatively short to medium term appointment. I think the whole football and culture and ethos thing could come at a later date. I really do. But that's my opinion. I might be totally wrong. And I think that they are minded to have them come as a pair, which I do think in some ways has delayed the process a little bit more than it would have been had it just been a pure managerial decision. But again, that's just my decision. My opinion, that I would be concentrating on getting a manager in, and I wouldn't be getting a manager in with the idea of he's going to be here 5 years. Of course, you can't paint that as the picture to the manager, but I'll be looking to say, can we get somebody in who might be just good enough to keep winning? Might be just an appointment where you rethink it again in the summer when you get your director of football and move on from there. I don't see it as comparing it to a Dennis Wise situation and Kevin Keegan. Again, that's just like ludicrous. We're talking about different levels here, and we're not talking about bringing in some two-bob midfielder who knew nothing about football to come and sit in. We're talking about proper professional managers, proper professional directors of football who come in and do a job.
Yeah, I agree. The African Nation Cup could be a blessing this season, says James. Do you agree?
In what context?
I guess he means because a lot of these clubs that we play in December, and I presume that's when the competition is.
It's only January.
Is it January? Oh, well,
January. I don't know. It's normally the turn of the year. So, but it could be different this year. It's all been changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I suppose if there's certain teams around Newcastle United, I'm just Googling, yeah. If there's certain teams around Newcastle United that have players out, then of course, if they're key players. So yeah, it says in here it's the 9th of January to the 6th of February.
What players? I mean, I guess it's the players that we would have involved. I'm not sure. James might come back on and clarify what he means there. Liam, it's great to hear Graham Jones taking 5 training sessions ahead of the Chelsea game. Little things like that do make a difference. Got to be honest, Bonner came across well on Friday at his press conference, and subsequently after the game, he came across well. It's not difficult, is it, really, in the grand scheme of things, to say the right things at a press conference? It's something that our former manager was pretty poor at.
But you know what? He struck the tone perfectly. It didn't take much pushing for him to strike the right tone. There was a couple of questions about his pride, and he sidestepped them and talked about sort of his mum and dad and not having them around anymore, and didn't want to go down that emotional avenue. But it didn't take a little bit more pushing for him to start talking about his time on the terraces and what a Newcastle, the basis of what a Newcastle United manager has to be at a base level, how they have to plug in to the people, to the area, and how people expect a bare minimum at this football club. And I think one thing that he's going to do is absolutely give that. I think what Jones won't give you is he's not a manager. I think he kind of accepts that a little bit with his answering, particularly on Friday at his press conference. But what he will give you is there were signs there at Crystal Palace. It wasn't pretty, and anybody who's seen it will know it wasn't pretty. But there were tactical signs there that you could tell he'd worked on. Bearing in mind, he only had them for 2.5 sessions. He's going to have 5 this week. So I would say will be a slight improvement against Chelsea. Look, it's a shot to nothing, Chelsea. You expect a par score would be 3-0 because they're on fire. They're absolutely on fire. But if you can get them organised, which they were, there was little tweaks. You've seen St. Maximin and Wilson, which hadn't been happening under Bruce, tucked in to make them a compact unit down the middle without the ball. When they had the ball, it made it a lot more difficult for them to get out. It's the balance. And it's the balance that Benitez always talked about, going back to his time, about the short blanket. You cover one part, you lose the other bit. And it's something that Bruce never got to grips with, despite the fact he had a lot more investment than any other manager in the history of Newcastle United. But yes, I think there will be, Newcastle United as a team will be better for those 5 sessions. Does it mean they'll get a result against Chelsea? No, of course. It's going to be really difficult because they're probably at the moment, apart from Liverpool, probably the best side in England at present on form.
Yeah, we can't give an answer to that, Skullfist, sadly. It's look, all I'll say is there was a hell of a lot of helicopter action across to Newcastle yesterday. Read into that what you will. Playing spotters are a little bit redundant. The new owners seem to use helicopters a lot, but I mean, who knows? It'll happen when it happens. A bit like the takeover, except we won't have to wait 4 years or whatever it was that we had to go through. So, and Colin says it's the biggest decision to be made, and it's got to be right. And it's good to see most Newcastle fans believe that, And a lot of people saying, well, how come they haven't had a new manager lined up? Surely they knew they didn't want Steve Bruce. Yeah, but they didn't know the takeover was going to go through. We thought we were going to have months and months of legal action. We thought we were going to go to a CAC case. We thought we were going to go to an arbitration case. It didn't come to that. And they've been caught short, just like we have. Plan 1, the first plan was always Rafa Benitez. And Rafa Benitez is currently managing Everton. He's just took the job. So that is why the new owners have been caught short. And that's not an embarrassing situation to be in. It could have happened to anybody that. And, they've got to get it right. You should be tipping your hat at them for not rushing in and going for Eddie Howe straight away because, well, he's managing the Premiership. He might be all right. They're clearly listening to people behind the scenes. They're listening to football advisors who they will have employed and who they will have on board. But they're also meeting the potential candidates. And they're doing it properly. And I think that's great. I think it's great. It's not sitting down a pub like Mike Ashley, writing things on the back of a beer mat and then going, oh, well, we'll give it to him because he's me pal from the casino. Or, we'll give it to him because he supports Tottenham. I mean, come on. We're at a different level, aren't we?
Yeah, of course we are. And that's the key thing. You've just hit the nail on the head there. Talking about it was one man's impulsive decisions or the wrong people that he trusted to action those impulsive decisions. Now you're talking a bit more of it's sort of delegated. Well, it's sort of spread around the decision. It's not just Amanda will not just make a decision. Murdad won't just make a decision. It isn't a Jamie Rubin decision. It's a collective, and they will all make the collective decision. I think fingers crossed it's the correct one. These things don't happen overnight. The process will. As you move forward and you get successes in decision making and people prove themselves to make correct calls, then this process will be streamlined. It'll be a much easier decision making process. But you are talking about 3 people who've worked together in different business spheres, working together for the first time in football business. And these things don't always happen straight away. You only have to look at the issues that Manchester City had in the first 6 months to 18 months of their time there, and look where they are now. look, I get that Newcastle United fans, I think most Newcastle United fans are smart enough to know that that's what's happening. But I think some get a bit excitable. Just chill. We need to stay up this season. This season's a bit of a write-off, to be honest. It shouldn't be, but it probably is. I'm not expecting anything from this season, but next I will, and the one after that. And that's where you'll start seeing real gains for this football club, progressive gains. But listening to the positivity I hear coming from particularly the Saudi end, that these guys aren't here to mess around. The last thing they'll want is a relegation. So I think they want to make the right call with the right manager to get them out of the mess. And I don't think they want to be in a position in January where they have to go out and splash more cash than they put out in the business plan, because the kind of business plan that they sound like they've put together would work for most football clubs, would work for most Premier League football clubs to take them from where they are at the moment, which Newcastle United is a 13 to 18, can dip into that sort of bottom three quite easily, take you up to a 7 to sort of 12 team. I think that can quite easily happen within 18 months, no problem. And I think they can be knocking on Europe's door by the end of next season.
Yeah, Alan says he'd be happy if we keep it down to 3 against Chelsea. Wilson 2 and Willock 1. Alan, and I loved your call last night, Alan. I do watch the fans forum on a Monday. I do enjoy it. Some great calls. Good to see you on, Donald, Jeff. Jeff, I've often wondered what Jeff looked like, and great to see Jeff making an appearance on there on a regular basis, and quite a humorous guy as well. But fantastic show. Tune in to see Pete and Chris each week doing the fans forum, giving me a night off. It's great. And don't forget as well, Loaded, I've got a bit of an exclusive. I've got my first player interview. Loaded Mag, I've got Warren Barton on, and Warren, of course, been on our show many times, been on a good cross section of the other podcasts. He will be on Loaded Mag, so give that a watch. Well worth tuning into that. I'm sure the lads will look forward to speaking to him. Mozza says, we've wanted this for a long time. Amanda made it clear it's a long job, so we need to trust them and have some patience. Getting back to the ground, Raymond says, do a Spurs with a stadium and build behind the Leazes end and move the park between the Strawberry. Lots of talk about that. No surprise. Shane Mawson says, how are you from Australia, lads? Thank you for tuning in. These earlier times seem to suit the Australians, which is good. Apocalyptic Workshop says, can we stop talking about Rafa now? It is getting boring. Keith agrees. He says, Rafa is old news. Move on. It's current news. It's back in the newspapers again. Maggot says, if you don't want Benitez and you don't enjoy football, lots of, again, that's always going to be a good cross section of opinions on Rafa. It'll never ever go away. I don't think that story.
The only man who ticks every box for what Newcastle United need now. They need somebody who's going to organise them defensively. They need someone to start building and growing a football club. And Rafa Benitez is the only candidate who definitely ticks all of those boxes. So for me, if you said to me now, who do you want as manager? I absolutely want Rafa Benitez to return to Newcastle United. I've seen the work that he does up close and personal. I know the plans that he had. And I think, or some of them anyway, and I think he would be great. But yes, I tend to agree with most people out there. I agree. I think that ship has long sailed. He took that Everton job, and that's the job he will stay in.
Paul Hill, obviously you saw the banner at Crystal Palace. He says, do you think the Premier League should put a stop to these? Of course, it's deemed not illegal and not racist by the police who were asked to investigate it.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I did see it myself, and I thought it was really distasteful in the nature with the blood and things like that on it. I thought it wasn't acceptable. I asked Crystal Palace immediately would they be making a statement on it. They refused. I asked the Premier League immediately would they be making a statement. They also refused. And of course, then we've seen the police getting involved. But what I would say is that it was distasteful. And Newcastle United fans and the club themselves are going to have to get skin, the thickest skin possible, because this is only the start and it's going to continue. Newcastle's players were booed onto the pitch by the Crystal Palace fans on Saturday. And I expect they might get out of other grounds as well. It isn't the fans in particular that they're targeting. They're just taking cheap shots at the new owners. But listen, ask yourself, when you see all of this noise, did you get what you wanted? Did you want this takeover? And if you did, take the rough with the smooth. That's all I would say.
Yeah. What about Jose, says Tom?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would
For
take
me,
him as well. You
absolutely.
never know. You never know what is going on behind the scenes. That is the exciting part about this. We're talking about, somebody put earlier. It's only a couple of weeks ago we're talking about getting relegated, etc. Now we're talking about big name managers, big name director of footballs, and potentially big name players coming in January.
Exactly, it's exciting times. We just need to. We just could do without, get that first win, get a little bit of momentum, and I think you would see a lot of groom lift because there's just that nervousness. There's that sort of nervousness hanging around that the longer they go without a win, that relegation could be staring them in the face. And I think the Sunday is going to be hard, but they've got to go somewhere like Brighton and not be out-tacticked, which they have been every single time they play Brighton, whether that was under Houghton or whether that's under particularly Potter. They just get out-tacticked. I know that's not a great term, but you know what I mean. By everybody, whoever the manager is at Brighton. Then you go down there, put in a solid defensive performance and win 1-0. And let's just get this sort of winless run off our backs. And let's start looking forward through that international break. But I think for me, to stay in touch with the teams ahead of them, they need to win one of these 2 games. It's not going to be easy, but they need to do it.
Yeah, I love this name, the Mortal Mag. Morning, lads. Are you sure it's morning? Can you see the new manager's first game versus Brentford at home after the international break? All the best, the Mortal Mag.
What's that? Can I see it as that? Yeah.
Do you think? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I think so.
Yeah, I think we'll beat Chelsea 2-1. What's your prediction, Liam, says Tom?
It's a hard one, that. I think we'll probably get beat. I think we'll probably get beat 2-0. 2-1 maybe. I might score.
I'm going for a 2-2 draw. I definitely think we'll get something out of this game. I think it's a game people are expecting us to get nothing out of. I think the crowd will be well up for it again, as always. But I think the fact that Bruce is gone now will give there'll be a lot more impetus to support the team and to support the manager. Whereas had we gone a goal down against Chelsea and Steve Bruce was still in the dugout, I think a lot of people and a lot of animosity would have turned towards Steve Bruce. I think this will unite the fans. I think the players will be upped. Just depends on who he picks. Some strange selections at the weekend again. I mean, didn't tinker with it too much. The bottom line is he got a point, but the possession was 25%. Liam, he put Kraft in, and people were like, He gave Ryan Fraser a chance. A lot of us wanted Ryan Fraser to get a chance. He let himself down. Didn't perform to the best of his ability, I didn't think. So I guess it's just, it's down to that little bit of luck, and we got a bit of luck at the weekend.
I think what I would look at is talked about Willock's injury, but I would look to probably bring Willock in for Fraser. I think Fraser got an opportunity. I don't really think he particularly let anybody down, but he didn't pull up any trees either. I don't really see what he added to that midfield. Emil Kraft, I can see why he plays him in that position, but he's so limited as a player. It's beyond belief. But look, I think they were a better unit. And I'm going to go over this again, and people might think it's coming from a position, because I know me and you, Steve, had some to and fro about this at times last season. But I actually think Matt Ritchie's a problem in this team. I know, I do, and I like him. I do like him, but I just think he doesn't stop crosses coming in ever.
Yeah, because he's not a defender. And
he's not. But get him where St. Maximin might pull out wide and drop a little ball into him. Who do you want delivering it? You wouldn't want anybody else delivering a ball from that box 25 yards from the touchline, where he's going to swing across it for Callum Wilson or whoever may be in the middle.
So you go to 4-4. So you go to 4-4-2.
Yeah, that's what I picked. Yeah,
you go to the tradition. I saw that because I saw your team that you put out before the game, because I didn't go to the game at the weekend, and I was watching a lot of the stuff online. I saw that. Go to 4-4-2. Bring in a left back. Dummett wasn't fit enough for the weekend. I hope he gets back soon, because Dummett is our best defender. We keep saying that on this show. But get Dummett in, or play Lewis. Lewis in that position. He's a left back. Give him a bit of encouragement. Tell him, your job's not to push forward this week, Lewis. You've got to sit back. You've got to defend. You've got to cut the crosses out. It is literally as simple as that. And get Ritchie out of the back four, because his legs have gone, but he is still capable of doing a job this season, I think. But yeah, I think it is as simple as that. But we're not getting paid the big bucks to make those decisions. That's the problem.
I'm not sure Graham Jones is either. Really, he's probably still on a Mike Ashley contract.
Oh, God, imagine. Fraser disappointed, but he wasn't the only one. ASM had a stinker. Nettle Warrior, 100% he did.
He's been terrible since the takeover. He's been terrible. That's nothing to do with the takeover, but he's just had a bad game the last two. To be fair to him, Newcastle didn't have a whole lot of ball in either game, and he was getting the ball a lot of the time against Palace, too far away from areas where he can damage anybody with 4 or 5 bodies in front of him. St. Maximin's never going to cause anybody problems when he's got to be 5 men. He's good, but he's not that good.
Now, do you play Manquillo left back? He's played there before, but I would keep him on right back, and I would play a left back at left back.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. I wouldn't start messing around with it. I actually see the point, but then who the hell did you bring in at right back? so no, I would probably play Manquillo at right back, and I'd play Lewis as left back, and I would push Richie a little further forward. But
Richie's a captain. Richie's a captain on that pitch, and like even Holly's come round to it now. And I banged on for long enough about this. Richie's a captain on the pitch. Watch him time and time again. He speaks to virtually everybody, goalkeeper, all the way through the team. He does what Lascelles doesn't do. And that in itself is worth its weight in gold. And he's clearly an influence in the dressing room. And I think just to get us through this season and keep us up, it's vital that he plays, but not at the back four. And everybody is agreeing with the Senshai. Says Dummett is more trustworthy in left, but obviously being injured. But I'd hope and pray that Longstaff is on his way to recovery and he can get back in that team, because Dummett's 100% our best defender that we have at this moment in time. Left centre back, yeah, possibly, but left back at the moment we're struggling at that position. And Nettle Warrior says Richie can play left side of midfield, but not wing back or left back. Yeah, he is a midfielder. That's what he was. He was bought to play on the right. Very rarely plays there. Matt Ritchie, player manager, says Michael Tracy. I wouldn't go that far. And Longstaff, another stinker. Dean, unfortunately, didn't have it. There wasn't many people came out of the game with glowing reports at the weekend, and I wasn't there. I watched it on a stream, and I've got to be honest, it was poor. Longstaff was poor.
Well, I'll be honest, my aim was, we'll try to do things a little bit different in Newcastle World. I don't have any set plays that I always produce for games. I thought, you know what, I'm going to do player ratings today. So I was going to put together a picture piece for the player ratings and my thoughts on all of the players. Newcastle World, as you see there, newcastleworld.com. I couldn't. Honestly, I watched the game. I was like, I can't rate these players because there wasn't anybody I could have picked who stood out. Not one. It was really it was tough. So I thought, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to pick something totally different. Ended up doing a piece on the stats and 25% possession instead. But yeah, I couldn't pick player ratings and thoughts to anybody who had to go through that and give marks to Newcastle United's players, because the only one you would maybe push towards a 6 would be Callum Wilson. Beyond that, you're struggling.
Yeah, I would agree. How many weeks before Dubravka's back?
I think Dubravka sounds like he's virtually there, to be honest. I don't know if Chelsea might be too soon, but I think he's virtually there, to be honest. Back in full training. It was a bad injury, and the complications that went along with that after it with the infection that he had has caused him complications in getting back fully fit. But I expect he's knocking on the door now, and he's not far away.
Quick plug for Newcastle World.
Yep, you can see it below, newcastleworld.com. Give it a follow on Facebook, particularly trying to push the Facebook page. We have a Newcastle World, Newcastle United, dedicated Newcastle United page where you'll see some, interactive posts and things like that. And so get involved, yeah. Give a follow on the Facebook page. If you don't already, give me a follow at Liam J Kennedy 23. But also Newcastle, it's at Newcastle_World on Twitter.
Great stuff, mate. Have a good half term. See you next Tuesday. Take care, Liam.
See ya.
Critics